You want to learn how to write a sales letter? How about a $50 million sales letter? Well, today is part 3 of my $50 million sales letter blueprint. I'm John Benson, and this is Sales Copy Secrets. Welcome back, and this is part 2. I got that right. My French is that bad. For my $50 million sales letter blueprint. Okay, in case you've missed the videos before, you got to stop this video right now. Otherwise, the police could come arrest you, or you could get really confused. Probably the second one, not the first one, but still. It's very important that you watch the first 2 videos on this series because you won't know what we're doing and you won't catch the intros or the headlines or nothing like that. So be sure to watch this whole series. Binge watch it if you can. Make yourself some popcorn. Have some fun. Or do like me, make a steak. So today I'm going to pick up where I left off last time, and we're going to dive into the section with the subheadline is My Life After Applying What You're About to Discover. Again, these subheadlines are very good and they're very well constructed, very purposefully constructed. My life, in other words, the person writing this, in this case me, after applying what you are about to discover. We actually have some duality going on in here, my and you. We're going back and forth with the pronouns. Now, we've talked about this before, but how cool it is to go from first person pronoun, or me and I and all this, back to you. Go to the second person pronoun, okay? That is a much, much more interesting topic for other people, is them, not you, right? So in this case, I'm saying my life after applying what you are about to discover. Pretty cool. So, could tell you how my story turned out. Now, what am I doing here? Well, I am completing the open loop that I did in the previous video. You'll have to watch the previous video to see the story part of this. I started the story and I stopped it midway through and said, I'll get back to that in a moment. And now I'm completing the story. I'm completing the open loop. And then I'm doing it in a way that I would like you to do your own story. The real turning point came when something unusual happened. Something weird happened. This thing that sparked my transformation, my going from where I was to where I am now. And here's where I just tell my nightmare story in its epic conclusion. In other words, what happened in the juicy part of it. Okay, in the very first part of it, which you missed, unless you watched the second video, you better have done that. Do it! Anyway, you might have missed it. It's basically where it said, in my story was, hey, I was in college, I was really, really fat. I got really out of shape. It kind of set the tone for this weight loss story. Now, yours doesn't have to be weight loss. Yours can be whatever you are writing about, of course. But now I'm telling the story in much more detail. I'm going into a night or a time or a place specific to the worst moment of my life. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing. You can read it. You can pause it if you want to. But basically, I was really hungry. I was having a sugar fix craving, and I stopped at a convenience store, and all sorts of mayhem ensued, shall we say. And that whole thing resulted in something. It resulted in this sentence. I sold my entire body out to sugar and junk food. I swore I would do something about my weight loss, my weight problems, or die trying. This is what I call a Declaration of Independence. Now, I call it that because I wrote my thesis on Jefferson in college. I am a big fan of Thomas Jefferson. And of course, the Declaration of Independence, kind of an important document. So I love calling it that but this is where you, as the writer of the sales letter, you are basically saying, I drew the line in the sand. This is the line. I shall not cross it. Or in my case, this is something I will die trying to figure out. So very, very powerful, very powerful. I will figure this out or die trying. Declaration of Independence. And I promised I would share these results with the rest of the world if and when I did figure this out. And this is what's really cool. You can say here, that's why you're reading this today, or that's why you're watching this video today if you're doing a video sales letter. It's because of that promise I made to myself. I made myself a promise. I'd figure this out or die trying, and then I would share it with the world. Congratulations, you're now the benefactor of that. So, and we tie in the system that they don't know about yet. It was these experiences, all that trauma, that led to my discovery of a simple lifestyle-friendly diet. Now, it's going to be whatever you discovered. It could be a piece of software. It could be something in cryptocurrency. It could be something in marriage and family. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But something allowed you to discover that. Something led you to discover that. So what I did is, rather than say, oh, I studied 19 years and I went to college for degrees in this, that, and the other, that's boring. What I did is I said, one horrific night, my whole trauma was basically encapsulated in one event. Now, that's hard to find for some people. For other people, it's very easy to find. If you can't find one, take a time in your life where something really where you hit rock bottom, where you really realize I have to figure this out, or I'm just going to die trying, or I'm going to give up, or whatever your line in the sand moment is. I like die trying because it's very powerful, but whatever works for you. So I hint at the system, and then I go on and I say, now at the age of 53, can you fucking believe that? 53, man? I'm actually 57, about to turn 58, but okay, I wrote this when I was 53. Now I have well-defined abs, better physique, etc. In other words, I'm giving a little bit of braggadocious space to myself here. Okay, now look what I've done. I've built a multi-million-dollar business or whatever you're talking about. I now have an awesome wife and kids, whatever you're talking about. Again, I've kept the weight off for over 20 years. So believe you me, there's a lot of hope for you. And this word cannot be overstated. Hope. Sales letters and sales marketing in general must inspire hope. It's not all about conversions and compelling someone to take action and all the stuff that we talk about in persuasion world. There is a strong element of hope that must be laced throughout your entire letter. Hope that they can do it. Hope that they will do it. Okay. Hope, knowledge that they will do it. Right. But hope. And hope can totally come from your before story if you have one, or clients' before stories. Now, here's what I want you to do right here. There's a lot of hope for you, like there was Mary, and like there was Bob, and like there was Jane. I don't have that here. It's something I've added later on, but this is a great place for you to put testimonials. Just do not put testimonials about your product or service. The last thing you want to do right here is to say, oh, just like Jane, and Jane said, oh, the 4-Day Diet or the Every Other Day Diet or whatever book I want to sell, Fit Over 40, changed my life. I don't want them to know that there's a book yet. I don't want them to know that there's a system yet, except for the little bitty part that I hinted at. They're not ready for that. They need to be sold more. They need to be indoctrinated, if you will, in a positive sense, not a negative sense of that word. Indoctrinated into the good stuff that you have to offer them. So the testimonials need to be something like, this information changed my life. Or John helped me go from this to that. So it's very vague, right? But the testimonials here work really well if you've got those types of testimonials. Now, let's look at the next section here. What would your life look like if I could help you erase your challenges? So that's pretty vague. And if you wanted to say if I could help you lose 40 pounds, if it was a weight loss offer, bearing in mind that this has got to be compliant. So all of this, by the way, is not Facebook compliant, and Facebook's changing compliance every single week. So it's really hard to tell. But you would say, what would life look like if you could erase your challenges? Okay, well, that's compliant because it's vague, right? And that's why I kept it this way. What would your life look like? You could probably get by with that. But this is a fairly compliant subheadline is what I'm saying. But if you want to get more specific, if I could help you lose 40 pounds, you're going to lose that compliance, I think. So you have to check with an attorney, go for it. And what I do next is really interesting. I go through a bunch of what I call secondary goals, things that they want to achieve after they've achieved their primary goal, which is in my case, to lose weight. So I ask them questions. Would you enjoy fitting back into those favorite clothes again? Or getting in fantastic shape, restoring your health? These are dreams realized by so many of my fat burning clients and friends, and I want the same for you. Now, notice what I do here. Fat burning, I'm using, an avatar they want to be, okay? They want to be a fat burner. Clients, okay? I could change the word to customers if that fits. And friends. What am I doing here? Well, I'm doing what I talked about in a video that I just made a few days ago on inclusion. Friends, clients, friends, I'm kind of saying like you get the point? I'm inviting them into sort of a family. I think that's pretty cool. I want the same for you. And I truly believe by following this advice, you can goal. Okay, that's what you're going to say here. And by their own words, they owe much of their success to the new approach I'll be covering today. Okay, so by their own words, and guess what? You can put 2 more testimonials right here. Got a good place for that. First, let me make sure you run from these 3 common lies and myths. Now, this is the next headline. So subheadline, excuse me. Run from these 3 common lies and myths. So here's where you get into the teaching section of the sales letter. And you want to be able to teach somebody what they shouldn't be doing, because that's going to direct them toward what they should be doing, which is following your plan, we hope, right? So what is some of the stuff that's bad advice out there, okay? For starters, many believe they're not able to burn fat without drinking coffee. So I'm just going into things that will be helpful for them to know, but it's not selling the product. And by the way, tips like these work fantastic in a video sales letter for sure. So you can take all this and put it into a VSL. So I just go into this, but notice what I do here. I call this the copy myth. Okay. Now I would say the myth, I'd say it's a rumor. I would change it like that. And that's what Copy Pro wrote, myth, but I changed it to rumor. It's a rumor called the copy myth. Well, I name every bad idea. Copy Pro asks you to name this, by the way. It's pretty cool. So we walk you through how to do this. Look at all these things I've got named as mistaken beliefs. But that's what makes Copy Pro so unique, is that not only will it store information for you, it prompts you to start marketing things and naming things so that you're the only one talking about the copy myth or all the other things you just saw. So I used to buy into that lie myself, and I tell the story here. Another common myth, and I go through this, low-calorie sabotage. Again, it's a named myth. I don't just say, here are the problems, because that's boring. So if you say, if you're counting calories, or if you're going on a low-calorie diet, or if you're relying on caffeine, those are going to really sabotage your diet results. That's good, and that's true, and all that stuff is, fine, but it's boring. But if you start naming things, if you start giving it a different name, like, have you heard about low-calorie sabotage? No? Well, let me tell you what that is. Okay, that's where you starve yourself and your metabolism shuts down. So it's information they've heard before, but they haven't heard it packaged in this way. So I encourage you to be naming things and saying, I call this blank, and it also adds more personality to your letter. You want your sales letters and sales pages and all of your marketing to reflect personality. People they don't just buy things that are good. They buy things that they relate to, and they buy from personality. Please leverage your own. Make sure you're emphasizing your personality, because that will get you the customers you really, really want. Now, one thing I do inside of this whole myths section is I say, how did it get started? How did we start believing this nonsense? The media, popular magazines, Oprah, the so-called experts. Okay, so in other words, I name the villains of the story. Regardless, there is one universal truth when it comes to fat burning, and it just so happens to be what's truly holding you back. Now, I'm going to use this last part, even though this is the end of part 3. We won't be covering this until the next video. Notice what I'm doing here. My subheadlines flow as if they're completing sentences and thoughts, because they are completing sentences and thoughts. Now, that's not a universal rule, but it's something I do all the time. So notice how it just leads you into reading what's next. That's the purpose of copy. The purpose of this line of copy is to inspire someone to read the next line of copy. So the more that you can lead someone down the path, one step at a time, one subheadline at a time, one chunk at a time, before you know it, they've read your entire sales letter. And that's a good thing. All right, so that was part 3 of my $50 million sales letter blueprint. Now come back the next week for part 4, and we're going to keep chunking this thing down. And before you know it, you're going to have a high converting sales page, one that you can be super proud of. And until next time, I am John Benson, and I'm here to help make you unignorable.